Okay, welcome back to our alternate life with Cove and Molly. So, for two of the next moments, I know what I'm doing. I've got those pretty solid. The next one is a little sketch, and then I have some playing in between to do to get to the other two moments and stuff, so there's going to probably be some editing involved, but for the beginning, let's start on the boat, shall we? We're on a boat! Baxter's not here this time. I did not invite Baxter. But this time we are not going to get sick. We're gonna hang out with Cove on the boat, so this should be pretty cool. Let's see, what are we going to do here? Instead of being nauseous, let's say it's refreshing. As you let your surroundings truly sink in, you thought today was shaping up to be memorable. You were glad that you'd been able to join Lee on this trip. We can really get the party started now! Oh, wonderful! What did you have in mind? Well... The word hung in the air as your cousin stalled. It was clear that she didn't have something immediately in mind. Cove's eyes sparkled as he piped up.
Can we get out of the boat? Like, go swimming around in the deep ocean?
Sometimes you'd swear that boy was part merman the way he was continuously drawn to the water, but Liz immediately quashed the suggestion.
No.
Aw. Her tone left no room for debate. That was a tone with no room for debate? Okay.
Sorry.
It's not that kind of boat trip. It isn't supposed to stop anywhere. If someone did end up off in the water, the captain would call the Coast Guard on us.
Cove's shoulders slumped at the resounding rejection.
All right.
It's not like I cared about it that much. Blech. That's disappointing. I would love to go swim in the deep ocean.
Truthfully, there isn't that much we can do on the boat that we couldn't technically do back on land.
Liz nodded. There's nothing wrong with some non-nautical themed activities. We could play a party game for all I care.
Yeah!
We'll do a party game!
You saw her brow furrow for just a moment as she mentally conjured possibilities, then smooth out as one came to mind.
Oh, what about the one where something is written down and people give clues and one person has to guess what it is?
Sure. I said I'd play a party game and I stand by it. Who's guessing first? How about rock, paper, scissors to decide? The others blinked at you as you made your suggestion. What? Rock, paper, scissors is great. It's a party game within a party game. Liz's expression was skeptical. And how would we decide who took turns for that? The game that is supposed to decide who's taking the first turn in the game we originally decided to play. Lee snickered, batting a hand in the air to brush away these minor details.
Trust me.
Don't be like that. We'll make it work. It's a good idea. More games equal more fun.
Together, you agreed on an order to go in for this set of games, and the mini competition was on, with Lee and Liz facing each other in the first round. Liz was triumphant. The next challenger was Cove. He and Liz went up against each other, and Cove emerged victorious. It was then your turn to go against him. Cove stared at you with narrowed eyes. The mini-game might only be a bit of meaningless fun, but Cove meant business. You took your positions, facing each other as the others watched on. You raised a hand, curled into a fist, just as Cove did the same.
On 3.
Cove frowned, focusing intently on your hand as if you might predict what shape it would make.
1, 2, 3!
You picked... dynamite. Scissors. At the call of 3, Cove's hand stayed as a fist. He went for rock!
Cove wins!
No! I've been defeated by my boy. Fine. It was over. Cove stamped his feet in rapid succession before following it up with fist pumps using both arms. Well, I'm glad he's so happy.
Yes!
He cheered in a whisper to himself. Cove was absolutely beaming. He won. This is terrible. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Lee shot Cove an amused thumbs up as Liz chuckled in disbelief. The actual game hasn't even started, and he's already getting like this. Cove continued to smile widely, the other contributions not even reaching him in his blissful state of victory.
Hey, you know, you've gotten rusty with your party game skills, Molly.
Excuse you? Liz lightly slapped his shoulder for that comment. Thanks, Liz. He chuckled unrepentantly. With a devious grin, Lee picked up a pen and notepad from the bar counter. She twirled the glittery pen with her fingers. Lee clarified the rules after Cove raised a wavy eyebrow. Random words would be written down and folded up to give to another player. When it was someone's turn to be a guesser, they would show everyone else the word but couldn't look at it themselves. The other players had to help the guesser figure out what the word was without saying it directly. Each person was allowed to say only one clue. After all the hints were given, then the guesser would have to decide. Lee gave each guest at the mini-party a piece of paper from her notepad. It was surprisingly thick-lined paper with a little starfish printed at the bottom. She scrounged around to find more writing implements. She managed to dig up a short pencil with an old jelly grip on it, a ballpoint pen with a logo you didn't recognize, and a purple crayon.
Okay.
Here, pick one!
Can I have the purple crayon?
Of course.
You pulled the crayon from the fanned assortment of options Lee had presented to you. The crayon was a lot thicker than what you were used to, but it's purple. It smelled like kindergarten, with a hint of those restaurants that used to give crayons with their kids' menus. Oh yeah. After the random selection of words were determined and the papers were passed around, it was time to start.
All right.
I guess we know who's going now.
Cove flipped open his paper and showed it to the crowd. He kept his hand at the back of the note so he couldn't see the word even if light shone through it. In blocky, wobbly text, you read the word potatoes. You pursed your lips together as you thought what you could say.
Sack!
Liz turned her head with an incredulous expression while Lee continued her thought. She jumped up, pointing right at the paper Cove had in his hand.
You put them in a sack.
I mean, you can't put them in a sack. Cove blinked at Lee, deeply confused. Lee smiled back, full of confidence that he would come to understand eventually. It's that Mr. toy with different faces and things. Ooh, clever, Liz. Cove tilted his head, utterly baffled at the different directions that everyone had taken.
What?
What's a Mr. Toy?
Liz simply shook her head at his lack of understanding. It was your turn to try. Brown and lumpy. Ooh. You make French fries out of them. You mind smacking, I thought it said smacking a fry. Snacking on a fry. Smack that fry. And Lee nodded enthusiastically.
Potatoes! Or a singular potato?
Yeah.
You're right! Cove repeated it again with a bright, beaming grin.
Potatoes!
Cove was so cute sometimes. You couldn't help but feel happy too over his victory joy. He held his hand out to you for a celebratory high five. High five. He slapped his hand with a satisfying smack. He nodded, still looking ecstatic.
Thanks for the hint. I don't think I would have gotten it without that.
You're welcome. Yeah, that was a pretty easy hint. He's just like, what are you guys talking about? Congrats. Now let's go again. You unfolded the paper given to you, careful not to peek while you showed everyone. Liz leaned in closely with a thoughtful hum. As soon as Lee had a chance to read the word, she jumped up.
Dog! There's a popular type of dog sometimes called that.
It's where scientists do experiments and stuff. Okay, a lab?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a secret location.
Liz gave Cove an edged look. She probably thought it would confuse you. Lab?
Good.
That's it! Woo!
You got it!
Yeah, you nailed it!
Everyone cheered! Liz gave you a round of applause. You looked at the paper, and in neat, tiny writing, you saw the word lab printed. Woo! You were thrilled that you got it. That round was a total victory. We should definitely keep this ball rolling. Suddenly, the boat tipped forward before rocking back harshly. The ship must have gone over a bigger than usual wave. Liz held onto her hat desperately. Lee laughed at her immediate death grip.
You never know what'll happen on the high seas.
Watch out, Liz. You wouldn't want to lose such a nice topper. You and Lee chuckled together while Liz stuck up her nose. However, your sister was now smiling, and her hold had slackened. The game continued with Liz and Lee taking their turns. It was such a good time that you all decided to play a few more games. Liz turned out to be the best guesser, although that could have been because you knew her well enough to give her relevant hints. Lee had to stop herself from answering on the first clue she was given, but no one really minded. All in all, everyone was glad that Lee had suggested the game.
Oh!
Lee shot you a grin.
Why don't we have some drinks? There's a bar on the ship.
Cove tilted his head in disbelief. Lee continued blithely.
Oh, yeah.
There's a bunch of stuff behind the counter. I bet one can make whatever they can think of. There's lots of different juices and stuff. I think I've even seen strawberry puree. And pineapple. The carrot juice sounds intriguing.
So...
It's a juice bar?
Yeah?
Liz laughed and tapped Lee on the shoulder. You just said bar, Lee. I think you gave the wrong idea.
Oops. Sorry for the disappointment, Cove. No alcohol is provided by the ship. That's probably required, considering the group they've got today.
I'm not disappointed by that. I didn't want to get drunk on a ship.
Lee brushed past that misunderstanding as though it hadn't even happened.
I was thinking we could mix them up and get something special. Anyone interested?
Cove thought about it, intrigued. Liz smirked, recognizing the potential for chaos. Oh man, this reminds me of sleepovers. Let's mix a bunch of drinks and condiments together and see what we get. That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It'll be a dream, trust me. So, who wants to make drinks?
What?
It was your idea. Why don't you do it?
I've mixed drinks before. If anyone else wants to try, this would be a great chance. I'm a gracious hostess.
You want to go in on this together, Cove? Cove and I can make the drinks.
What?
Huh? Wait, me too?
Yeah, I want the help. Lee nodded in approval.
Totally.
With the both of you on the job, you'll definitely come up with something fun.
With only mildly pinched brows, Cove accepted his enlistment.
Alright.
Ah! I'm so excited. Let me just show you the bar.
Lee gave a brief tour of selection in various compartments. Cove wrinkled his forehead again at a few of the available juices, but didn't ask any questions. After that, she went back to the tables while she shouted a final message over her shoulder.
Good luck! Make it delicious! And be sure there's enough for everyone!
She gave you a thumbs up and skipped back to the others. There was a fridge packed with cartons and various glass bottles of juice. Lee had placed a pitcher on the counter for you to mix things into. You stared at the options, trying to see just what you had to work with. There were a lot of choices. Cove hovered behind you, overwhelmed by how many things you had to pick from. He cleared his throat.
What now? Do you have any ideas?
You reached into the fridge to take out some juice. You grabbed... This sounds good. Some mixed raspberry, blueberry, and blackberry juice.
Okay.
Cove leaned around you and grabbed a bottle of apple juice. He set it on the bar counter, hopefully.
Can we add some of this too? I like it.
Go for it. You wanted Cove to help after all. He happily poured some of his juice into the large pitcher with yours. There was still room in the pitcher for quite a bit more juice.
I think that looks good already, but is there anything else you want to add?
Where's that pineapple at? Let's do some pineapple too. I think that would be good. You poured in the third juice, careful not to spill any.
So?
Interesting. Are we done?
What do we got? Pineapple, apple, and a bunch of berries. I mean, I could add in some strawberry. Don't want it to be like too much though. Yeah, let's stick with that. Keep it relatively simple. I wonder what happens if you do all the juices. It's just like juice. With your juice done, you set out some glasses and poured out some for everyone. You walked back to the others and waved at them to follow you. The group got up from the lounge chairs they had been sitting on and came to fetch their drinks. Everyone picked up a glass and took a sip. Liz squinted as she took a large swig of juice. She smiled. That's kind of odd, but weirdly in a good way.
Right?
I agree. It's some nice work.
Thanks to you, I don't think we did too bad.
The little juice experience was a good time as far as you were concerned. Wonder what all the variations are with that. Contently, you all stood close together, some still holding their juice cups. Lee's eyes scanned the group, and she giggled.
Right?
This is so much nicer than having to rely on regular phone calls to catch up, right?
Before anyone could respond, Lee's eyes widened. The corner of your mouth pulled into an amused smile.
Not that I don't enjoy our chats from afar. It's just more fun to actually be here together.
That's fine.
We understand. And yes, this is a fantastic little party. Happy graduation, Lee, Molly, and Cove. That was followed by more cheers and celebration of your high school careers coming to an end. Lee even lifted her glass to toast to it. When it settled down, your older sister had one more comment to add. And no one even had to fight over who gets to use the home phone. Ha ha ha. Lee threw her head back in thunderous laughter. The smile widened on your face.
I remember that! All the times Elizabeth here was trying to push me into being less gabby. She needed me to just stop so she could call her other friends instead.
Hey, many teens have a too cool for family phase. Liz's smile wavered. She crossed her arms, but then her eyes slid over to you. But I do recall Molly being equally as difficult about keeping hold of that phone. Embarrassed, your face grew warm being pulled into the conversation. You shook your head and Lee giggled.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Luckily, it's all A-okay. I forgive Liz for being a teenager.
That got a hearty laugh out of Liz. You caught a quiet snicker out of Cove, too.
At least Molly kept me up to date on what was happening in Sunset Burr those difficult days. I never knew what wild thing you were gonna fill me in on next.
Liz really missed out on those meaningful conversations. Glancing over at your sister, you saw her squish her face up in a jokingly exaggerated way. Sounds like it. I think I'm gonna need you to retell some of those stories. I might be able to do that.
It definitely is always fun to stay in the neighborhood loop.
Then Lee drank the rest of her juice down to the very last drop. She made her way to the table over by Cove and set her cup down.
Actually...
Cove watched Lee as his mouth pulled into a lopsided smile.
Making these juice concoctions reminds me a lot of that smoothie business down at the mall. The one that lets you pick all the fruit that goes into it. That was a good place.
Oh yeah!
Yeah.
Yes! It was the best and exactly what I was channeling when I came up with this idea. I'm glad you caught that finally.
Sorry. I can take a while to get things sometimes. You all know that.
At least you figured it out. I didn't even think about it. Too true. You're sharp when you want to be. Cove studied you for a moment like he wasn't sure if he should take that as a compliment or not. I guess it could be kind of a backhanded compliment, but ultimately he settled on a smile. The moment broke with the sound of Liz's quiet laugh. That was all it took to get Lee laughing, and soon after you all were soaking up the mirth of the moment too. The hours were spent chatting away, sharing stories and favorite memories as the boat drifted out to sea. As time slipped by, the sun hanging low in the sky signaled that it was time to set sail back to the harbor. The more boisterous atmosphere from earlier had settled into a blanket of comfortable relaxation. Liz and Lee were absorbed in conversation, lounging around on the deck couch. You could hear laughter coming from them every now and then. There were always smiles. Taking a deep breath of sea air, you sighed contently. Cove stood by your side in the center of the deck. When you were ready, you looked back to the deck and the faces of everyone you spent the afternoon with. You never wanted to forget that view. Then, looking out at the wide open ocean, you committed every bit of the moment to memory. You quietly thought to yourself, today had certainly been an adventure. Neat. Okay, that was fun. That was a fun alternate boat ride. Definitely better than being sick in the cabins down below, but we didn't have our cute little hangman date, so there's that. Alright, now. Remember when we got the firefly and stuff? We had the option to confess to him then. So, we're gonna do it now. Step 3, confession, before he confesses at the end. Let's see how it goes. Your heart started to pound. The harsh beat drowned out all other sounds. You stared at him with a firm gaze. You both had known each other for so long. You'd always known how special Cove was to you. Even when you were kids, there was no one like him, and no matter how much time passed, no one could replace him. You had never let yourself say it before, but not any longer. This wasn't the time to keep your feelings to yourself. Cove's expression shifted into something concerned. His brow was furrowed as he waited for your response. There was something fragile there, unsure. We should be a couple already. Cove, I like you. I like you so much. He placed a hand on your chest, hyper aware of how nervous you were as you waited for him to respond. He looks like he's gonna be ill. Cove froze up, face stuck on the shocked expression. But you noticed a slight tremble travel through his body as he went dark red. He swallowed hard.
Oh my god.
Molly.
His eyebrows furrowed, and he openly struggled with words. He made several false starts, unintelligible pieces, and parts of thoughts. Finally, his voice cracking all the while, he got something out.
Yes.
He sounded like, all right!
Okay. Yes, I want to be with you. I always have. I can't even remember what it was like not to want to see you every day.
It was like he could barely process it, as if he'd never thought reality would let him have this. He started sniffling. Aww, my weepy boy.
I'm just so glad.
He scrubbed at his eyes. His voice went soft then.
My whole life, as soon as I knew what it meant to like somebody, I've pictured this. Even if I couldn't make it happen. For me, it's only you.
Aww. His arm faltered, causing the firefly to fly off. He recentered himself, looking into your brown eyes.
Molly, if I can, I'd like to be your boyfriend. I'd like it a lot. I can't think of anything I'd like more.
His lips quirked into a shy smile as he let out a laugh so airy it was nearly a cough. Finally! I would have felt stunned. Your heartbeat still hadn't slowed. Was it hot in here? Well, it was summer, but that didn't help you much. You know what? Go for the kiss again, girl. In this alternate world, you can go give him the smooch. You reached out to him, letting the distance between the two of you shrink. Within seconds, you were close enough to feel his breath on your face, and you saw the moment it dawned on him. Cove looked nervous, but determined, and brought his face to yours. Your noses brushed together when he paused, unable to will himself to move further. But you could. You bridged the slight distance that remained and kissed him. He kissed you, feather light and brief. He broke the kiss after only a taste, but kept his face near, resting his forehead on yours for a moment as if to truly breathe you in. Then, as if there was never a pause at all, you were kissing again. This time it was longer, his mouth more eager. He was absolutely still nervous. You could tell from his shaking hands as he cupped the back of your head, but you could feel that the thought of kissing you wasn't a new concept for him. Ah! The only way someone as hesitant as Cove could respond as readily as he did was if he'd taken time to think on it before this moment. The realization of that thrilled you. You knew this was right. When you looked into Cove's face again, his smile was sparklingly bright, much more so than the firefly he had brought you. His eyes prickled with tears and he sniffled, but you could recognize equal joy taking over him. You both were happy together. You were together and happy. So cute! I'll tear up as well with you, you goober. You blinked rapidly as tears welled up. You just couldn't stop them. Your joy refused to be contained. He ducked his head with a childish giddiness and peeked at you out of the corner of his eyes.
Thanks for waiting for me.
It was definitely a wait. Oh, I like this one. I wasn't waiting. You've always been there for me.
Molly. Oh. We're gonna have to tell everybody about this, aren't we? Your moms, my parents, Liz, Terry, Miranda, everyone. I don't think they'll be surprised.
He smiled at you with an unabashed preciousness. You figured that even without your history, if anyone caught Cove looking at you like that, it'd be obvious exactly how he felt. His openness of character had some truly delightful benefits. You must have been making an expression equally as affectionate because he began to fluster again. He made some stuttering chuckles and then quieted down, his mouth forcefully staying closed. You both took a moment to process. After 10 years of being together, you were officially a couple now. Cove looked into your eyes with a soft, slightly shy expression. There was hope in his smile.
Do you want to go to the hill with me? I bet there's still fireflies.
Absolutely. Let's go! Cove brightened. He was practically bouncing at the thought of a secret excursion before he suddenly became bashful.
So...
how should we leave? We could just try the door. We don't have to do the window thing, but maybe that'd bother your family?
You both chuckled at how awkward it would be if your moms, or worse, Liz, saw you going on a midnight firefly catching trip. You'd be sure to avoid that. Window. Let's go through the window. Cove nodded in understanding. You grabbed some shoes and readied yourself for an adventure. You were glad that there was no way you'd run into another soul outside. Cove would be way overdressed, and you were still in your jammies. Oh, right, this was the night of the, I forgot. This was the night of the Orca charity dinner. That's why he's so fancy dressed up. So cute. You let Cove go first. He stepped back onto the ledge as you carefully followed. I wonder if this is similar to, because I think we snuck out. Whoops. I think we snuck out with him before. Yes.
Are you okay?
Am I okay?
Are you okay?
Yes. I would like some help, please. Let's lie down in the grass. Let's snuggle. Get the chance to snuggle this time. He was warm in contrast to the chilly ground. Cove cuddled closer in turn, tucking his arms up near your shoulders. I think he said this before, yeah. You couldn't help but reflect on what happened only a brief time earlier. Between this and your room, this almost felt like a different world. Was it even real? What happened between you two? You could almost be convinced it wasn't and that you had never actually stopped dreaming. You stole a glance at Cove. He caught you and blushed. That little reddening reassured you. Cove remembered same as you. What you had was real. I know we caught fireflies last time. What happens if I ask him to dance with me amongst the fireflies? Would you want to dance with me? Cove stared at you in shock at the invitation. Understandably, he had not expected that. You felt obligated to try to say more. I mean, look at how you're dressed. I think I want to dance with you again, before it's over. His mouth fell open a little. You could tell he recognized your words. He had used the same on you many years ago. Aww. His eyebrows crinkled, and he smiled, speechless. You got up and brushed off your clothes as best you could. A pesky blade of grass tried to stay stuck to your leg. Cove did likewise, wiping his hands on his pants to clean them off. You faced across at each other, and suddenly the prospect of what you were doing became more real. Cove hesitated a moment as you both tried to decide what move to make now. He smiled as he wrapped one arm around your waist and the other across your back. He pulled you closer, near enough that your bodies were touching. Then you began to sway together amid the floating lights. Despite the lack of music, you found a rhythm to your movements. Back and forth, step to the side and slide. It was relaxed and freeing. Your eyes never strayed from one another. For a time, you just existed in the moment, holding each other close and enjoying being together. The hour grew late and the fireflies mostly dispersed until only a few stragglers remained. Then even they blinked out of sight, leaving you alone with Cove and your thoughts. Cove stole a second to release the words that had been filling his head during the quiet.
I'm so glad.
I get to be with you.
You felt a great deal of happiness. Cove's expression was completely open, honest, and full of sincerity. He meant every word. No matter how much it didn't seem real yet, it was. It felt as though this was a night that would never end, but you knew it would have to all too soon. You were only grateful to have been a part of it. These were moments to truly treasure. You'd never let yourself forget them. Oh, that was so freaking wholesome. Gosh dang. What a beautiful night it was. Dancing on the hill. Amazing. Okay. So now this is where things get a little trickier. This is step 4. I basically silenced Cove when he was about to confess his feelings at the end of step 3. I'm not really sure how to go about getting the suggested scene. But apparently something to the effect of like confessing to Cove and getting engaged one after the other. And I'm not sure if it's confessing to him now when I first arrive in step 4 and then we get engaged at the end, or if it's literally like bam bam confession and engagement at the end. So I'm gonna try this first and then probably gonna do some skipping and stuff to see if it's the other way around. Anyway, there's gonna be some editing involved, no doubt. I'm just a confused little pickle, but it's fine. I'm just riding on the high of like the delight of the confession from step 3, which was great. Okay, so I could kiss him right now. Either way, this is gonna be awkward in front of my driver, but let's see what happens if we tell him we love him right now. Cove's eyes crinkled as he continued studying your face. He tilted his head ever so slightly to the side as he caught that you were lost in thought about something. You knew he was curious about what it could be and didn't suspect anything. Not yet. Cove, I love you. He's like, The words were out there and there was no way for you to go back. It was time to take a step forward.
What?
His response, stuttered loud enough for the whole street to hear, wasn't exactly the most encouraging. To be fair to him, you had just confessed your feelings on the spur of the moment from the back of a rideshare car. Imagine if you had kissed him. You took hold of his shirt collar. You could be pretty aggressive here, my goodness. We'll go for the hand. You placed a hand over the one he was supporting himself with. As your thumb traced the underside of his fingers and his palm, you felt the coarser texture of skin that was no stranger to salty seawater and sand. Cove shivered at your movement, then went completely still as if lying in wait. You used the moment to reiterate the confession so there could be no doubt. I love you. Cove stared at you with wide-open eyes. He was stunned into silence. The corners of his mouth twitched, but that was the full extent of his motion. You couldn't even tell if it was an attempt to speak, smile, or scowl. You paused. You had years of experience when it came to understanding Cove, yet you didn't have an inkling whether this was a good sign or a bad one. Biting your lip, you tried to remember to keep breathing as you waited for his answer. As Cove continued to gawk, the signs of life began to reemerge. The corners of his mouth trembled once more, then again. The arm he was propped up on wobbled, his elbow bending lower. He squeaked, the noise cracking in his throat, and he shoved himself backwards. He was out of the window, and worse, out of your sight in the time it took to blink. Well, that's not encouraging. You gazed hollowly at the open window, Cove's abrupt exit replaying in your mind. The click of a car door opening made you flinch. Disoriented, it took you a moment to realize that it was the door on your side, and it was being yanked open from the outside. Your lips parted as you tried to make sense of the situation before you. He'd come back. Cove planted a hand on the car frame, using it as balance as he bent down and stuck his head inside the car once more. He was so much closer this time, but he had still not uttered a word since your declaration. You searched his face for an answer. And an answer came in the form of a kiss! Delivered while you were still sitting in the backseat of the car with no time wasted! Woo! Look at him going for it. This is great. His lips pressed firmly into yours, as though determined to leave no room for doubt with a kiss that intense. It ended as suddenly as it began. You breathed heavily, raking air into your lungs. Cove did the same, his chest visibly rising and falling. You still yearned for more. It seemed much too brief.
I love you.
He spoke evenly, carefully, wanting you to know just how seriously he meant every word. His brows lifted almost in a plea as his composure broke, and he spoke softly, desperately.
Let's be together.
Cove. His name came out as a whisper. With that, Cove pulled himself out of the car yet again. You had no intention of letting him out of your sight. Luckily, he wasn't running. Instead, he stepped aside and held the door open, encouraging you to get out to join him. You hastily grabbed your things, your hands closing haphazardly around a mess of handles and fabric, and jumped out of the car after him. Since you had your hands full, Cove took care of pushing the door shut, all without taking his eyes away from you for even a moment. Shout out to that driver who did not interrupt or get annoyed or anything. I hope we gave them a big tip. You waved the driver off awkwardly, the bag you were still clutching swinging erratically. They correctly interpreted your gesture as a sign that you were ready for them to go. Your sights were still on Cove, so you only dimly registered the car carefully pulling out and disappearing into the distance. Then it was only you and Cove, standing in the middle of the street where you'd grown up together. The weight of the moment was heavier than the luggage you were carrying. Staring into Cove's eyes, you knew he felt it too. After being there right by each other for the majority of your lives, you were really doing this. Sorry for springing this on you without warning.
You don't need to apologize.
His tone was entirely firm, leaving no room for misunderstanding.
Molly.
His tone was so wistful, a mere nudge away from sadness. Concerned, you listened as he continued. Tears collected in his eyes, gathering along the lower lid and threatening to fall. He struggled for the words he needed to say.
I wasn't ever going to ask you to be with me again. Not after what happened back when we just graduated from high school.
Your heart and eyes burned. That had been one of the hardest things you'd ever had to do, but it didn't feel right to start a new relationship along with everything else that was changing. Yeah, when I was getting myself to this moment to save in preparation for this video, it sucked being like, don't tell me what you want to say, let's just go back to dinner. Ugh. Gut-wrenching.
I was afraid I'd ruin things if I tried to push it. but I still kept hoping that maybe someday you would be the one asking, and you are. Oh my god.
The tears he'd been fighting to suppress spilled out and he began to cry in earnest. The earlier boldness he'd shown was washed away, engulfed by his overwhelming emotions. I'd be tearing up too. In this moment, you were so happy, so relieved, so amazed that your body needed a release. You made quite a pair, crying in the middle of an empty road, but you were a perfect one. I'm sorry for ever making you feel worried. Cove drew a deep breath, his eyes closed as he tried to pull himself together, at least a little. As he exhaled, he looked you square in the eyes.
No one else in my life compares to you. There never will be, and there never can be, anyone else who means the same to me. For me, it's only you.
His words brought you such perfect comfort that you tried to commit each syllable to memory, never wanting to forget a single word. Thank you. That means so much to me because I feel that way about you too. Your response buoyed Cove further, making him smile in full. It was beautiful. He was still grinning as he rubbed the back of his neck, his head tucked into his chest, and asked his next question.
So...
Even the pause was bashful.
I get to say I'm officially your boyfriend now, right?
That's right, and I'm your girlfriend. Cove beamed like the ray of sunshine he'd been for your life for so long. And smooch. Your lips gladly met his again. Cove happily returned the kiss. Neither of you could quite get enough of this newly opened avenue. And after all, you had a lot of time to catch up on. You relished the moment. After knowing each other for most of your lives, your relationship had altered forever, and you could tell Cove was as thrilled about it as you were. Cove broke the silence that had fallen between you by chuckling. He rubbed at his arm as he sheepishly studied his shoes.
I mean...
I feel pretty bad for the driver. I mean, they were just doing their job and ended up having to wait for us to work through our romantic holdup.
I know. Okay, thank you. It'll be fine. I'll tip them extra in the app. Brightening, Cove nodded.
Good thinking.
Thanks. Could we go see my mom's? After your reunion with Cove, you need to let them know about the development. I'm gonna have to tell them. About this. Us. Cove's cheeks warmed in a flush of color, but he smiled.
Right.
I'd like to let them know. I want to tell everyone about it.
You stared at him, astonished. He'd grown so much in the time you'd known him. There was no doubt in your mind that, had you done this years ago, Cove wouldn't have been nearly as self-possessed about this. That's fine. You know what? Sometimes you don't have to share that with him. Look, every moment where the confession happens is beautiful in its own way, okay? Then the two of you began the walk to the door of your family home side by side. Okay, so we started to pat our pockets.
Yeah.
You grinned quietly. Cove bashfully waved at them. He hadn't relaxed fully, but he had settled down at their welcome. Okay.
That's fine.
Gotta hug the moms. Always hug the moms. I missed you both.
We missed you too, Molly. It's always nice when I'm able to come by.
Your moms giggled, pleased. The conversation lulled. In the pause, you shared a silent look with Cove out of the corner of your eyes. You were silently trying to suss out how to approach the elephant in the room. The fact that you officially started dating literal minutes ago. Cove got the wordless memo based on how his posture tensed. He might have been confident outside, but there was still a struggle happening inside this condo and inside Cove himself. Mom raised an eyebrow at the growing awkwardness, but Ma smiled encouragingly.
Is something up? Yes.
Ma covered her mouth with a hand, but you could still make out her giggling. It caused Cove to groan.
They're laughing at us already.
Cove's grumbles made Mom snort a chuckle herself.
Well, are you gonna let us in on it or not?
I kind of like this one. But I'll do this one. Yes, Cove and I are dating now.
Oh, wonderful!
Ma clapped her hands together to punctuate the statement. The excitement was underlined with open relief. You got the impression your ma just barely stopped herself from saying, "Oh, finally," instead. Mom shook her head while grinning at her wife, likely having the same thought.
Everybody was surprised when Cove here moved out of the neighborhood, and the two of you still hadn't said a word of your very secret feelings for one another.
Mom!
Looks like it still worked out in the end, though. Patience is a virtue indeed. But congratulations to you both.
Ma, who hadn't stopped beaming this entire time, chimed back into the conversation.
You're a perfect pair. I know you'll make each other so happy.
Mom put a hand on Ma's shoulders, as if she was worried she might float away on a cloud with how high her spirits were.
What she said. You're all grown up now, and I'm sure you're making the best choices for your own lives.
Cove was able to smile with a sweet bashfulness. The uncomfortable stiffness of earlier had mostly worn off.
Thank you.
Of course.
Welcome to the family.
Your boyfriend coughed out a jittering laugh over that statement, and his statue act returned. It really didn't surprise you how brief his relaxation lasted. Your parents snickered amongst each other. They had plenty of fun with that. Thank you, moms. It was great how you could count on your moms to embrace your relationship so completely. You felt incredibly lucky. But as happy as you were, you hadn't forgotten you weren't the only one having an important romantic moment. You wanted to ask your moms about theirs too. I hope things are going well for you both. You inspected the beaming faces of your parents. They both appeared to be doing fine. Are things sorted out for your anniversary yet?
No problem.
We're happy to help if there's something we can do. We've been plenty fine. It's been a little quiet, but that's not a bad thing.
Okay.
Josh?
It was a spacious double room. He'd claimed that his bed was comfortable, so you had high hopes about your own. Right, I guess we wouldn't be sharing a bed this time.
So?
And I'm sure they'll be very excited to hear your news.
Okay. Cove perked back up, excited once more. Gotta go tell the other parents. Let's call him Cliff this time. I think this is the same, yep. Called her Mom 3 in a non-serious way. Cove went right into his old home. Okay.
Hey.
I missed you, Cliff. I'm gonna give you a hug. Within seconds, you had your arms wrapped around his middle, and Cliff hugged you back just as tightly. There was a quiet sniffle. You breathed a sigh of relief, happy to be home.
I missed you too. Never feels right around here if I'm not seeing you both running back and forth across this neighborhood.
Cliff cleared his throat, pulling attention to himself. He crossed his arms. Okay, and there's Mom. Big hug for Mom 3. She held you both tightly in her arms, and you squeezed her back with nearly the same intensity. You felt loved. Cove wrapped his free arm around her too. He rested his head on top of hers and let out a happy sigh. So cute.
Thanks.
You look great too, Mom 3. The attention abruptly shifted back to Cove as he, not at all casually, cleared his throat. Cove made eye contact with you before speaking. You had an idea of where this was going. He wanted to know if it was alright to talk about your relationship now. Go for it. You gave a slow nod in response. He mimicked the motion in kind before facing his parents once more.
Everything okay, bud? Definitely.
Cove's feet shuffled as he shifted his stance to stand at his full height. He then reached over and linked his arm around yours, visibly showing your new union.
Dad, Mom, Molly is my girlfriend. I'm in love with her.
Really? The shout was as massively hope-filled as it was loud. Yay!
Yeah, Dad, it's real.
Cliff let out a heavy breath, pairing it with a shaky thumbs up.
That's a relief.
Oh, great. That's great. At this point, I wasn't sure if being supportive meant encouraging Cove to say something, or if it was best to pretend there was nothing there. It's so good to hear you hashed it out and everything is okay. At least for now. The next part is making it work for the rest of your lives, hopefully. It'll be fine. I'm sure. I'm happy for you. Thanks, Dad.
Kyra shook her head amusedly at Cliff's nervous energy. She then switched her focus from Cliff to you and Cove.
My babies! Congratulations!
She beamed at you both while dramatically putting her hands over her heart.
Marvelous.
You've made this mom very happy. Today is a good day.
She wiped at one of her eyes with a satisfied smile. Her reaction buoyed Cliff's excitement further.
Group hug!
He pulled back on the enthusiastic statement immediately by tacking on an awkward caveat.
If you want to.
No hugs! Group hug!
Group hug it is.
Yeah.
Kyra and Cove came close enough for Cliff to loop them in. You reached towards them as well. The group of four squeezed together with grins across the board. You truly felt like you belonged here. The mood remained high until the hug eventually broke apart. Cove beamed warmly down at his mother and father, the perfect picture of a happy child. You were so glad the two of you were able to speak to Cove's family about this and that they were fully accepting of it. They were good people. You wanted to ask how things have been going for them, too. So, how have you been doing?
Well,
Alright, let's, I'm really happy
Thanks.
for you, Kyra. Bye! We gotta go, we gotta mosey. Delighted, the smile on your face grew.
Let's go.
To the beach. It's not too late. We can still start our own pretzel stand. But did you actually want to get a pretzel, though? Into the water we go. Bashfully, your gaze fell down to the ground. You drew squiggles into the sand with your foot while your heart fluttered, thinking about what Cove said. This is a wonderful day. You felt elated. You couldn't wait to pick up Liz and be surrounded by your family again. Cove murmured quietly, losing himself in his thoughts again. Shortly after, you saw his hand shoot down into the sand. Is that a shell? Yes. No escape from curfew.
oh,
You saw Cove hesitate for a second. You couldn't have that. You got his attention and spoke quietly but deliberately. What is this about? Oh, Wave Rider family, gotcha. You too, Cove. You count.
Thanks. Exactly. Well said, Molly.
He always counts.
hey.
Liz! Gonna give you a hug, as always.
So,
Thank you, Cove, for moving.
now.
Let's see. You peered at your mom's, checking out Ma's face from the rearview mirror and squinting at what you could see of Mom's profile. There was not a hint that they had any intention of giving away what they'd found out earlier. You appreciated that they were leaving it up to you and Cove to announce. Hey, Liz. Yeah? I'm in love with Cove Holden, and he loves me back. Oops.
Jeez.
Wow, took you long enough? Liz shook her head in mock exhaustion. There was a smile tugging on her lips. You really dragged that out. She laughed, pure joy in her voice. Slow and steady wins the race, I guess. Cove seems like he'll do a decent enough job with my baby sister. I'll give my approval.
Thanks.
Cove blinked and then nodded with more confidence.
You have nothing to worry about.
I'm taking care of Cove as well. Uh-huh. So, who else have you told so far? Liz's eyes narrowed with suspicion. You suddenly felt very glad that you hadn't said anything about your relationship on any group chats with your friends. You raised your shoulders and tilted your head at Cove. He shifted in his seat.
My dad and my mom and your parents, obviously.
Liz scoffed, displeased that all the grown-ups got to hear first. However, it wasn't long before she smirked once more.
Good.
I still heard before Lee. At least that's something. That got a few laughs. Cove rolled his eyes. Lee was going to be thrilled when you finally had that chance to call her. You just knew that she was gonna shriek. You kept your phone in your pocket. That would have to wait. For now, it was enough to enjoy being reunited with your big sister. Alright, and we're back. Sure.
Thanks.
He gave you a winning smile and walked over to his new bed. He flopped onto it and seemed quite comfortable. You did get a very good hotel. Thanks for handling this.
No problem.
He beamed, glad to have your appreciation. Alright. You watched the man, who was now your partner, lying comfortably in his bed. The physical distance between the two of you in the situation felt different than it would have before. There were new expectations on the table that'd need defined boundaries. Before, you'd never be able to get closer. Now the possibility was finally real. It was a thrilling concept. When you went on trips together in the future, you could plan them as a couple. Get a single bed for the both of you. Fall asleep side by side. The thought of it would definitely help you have sweet dreams that night.
Good night, Molly.
Sweet dreams. Is this... Okay, we did this before. Oh yeah, being back at Sunset Bird. So weird. What's the Looking forward to this?
See you tomorrow.
I'll see you tomorrow. Good morning.
I mean...
I think I did this one before. Nope. Must have been the oyster one. Yep. You're right. All these little tiny changes. What happens if you do this? Ah, amazing. I need to know. Yelp! Okay, he's not too freaked out about it. You look great, Lee. Biting the inside of your cheek, you shook your head. Your skin warmed with embarrassment.
Don't be modest, I mean it. You look happy.
Lee leaned to the side to glance past you and meet Cove's eye. The grin on her face widened while she waved.
Hi, Cove!
Hey, nice to see you, Lee.
Oh, I'm always wondering if you're there too. Somewhere. Liz's twip-litched. Liz's lip twitched, there we go, before twisting into a smug smile. She brushed a stray hair out of her face.
Hey.
You make it sound like I'm always following you around. I have a life of my own, if you weren't aware. I know, but when I'm home, I'm always keeping an eye out for my big sister. Old habits. How sweet.
I miss the days of checking to see if someone else made it to the TV first, too.
You laughed. Of course that's what her mind would go to.
Totally.
Enjoy your brunch. We have to go meet Terry and Randy. I hope you both have fun.
Don't worry, fun is my specialty.
Chuckling, Liz smirked.
We'll try not to have all the fun. Don't get into too much trouble.
You shook your head and Liz winked. She then glanced back at her phone and rapidly typed a new text. Did we tell Lee that we're dating yet? Oh, yes, about getting married. Maybe she was right about it, you know? But you stared straight ahead, trying to conceal the marriage thoughts now spinning in your head. You caught Cove shyly rubbing at the slight scar that was still visible on his arm. His stuttering never quite reached full sentences. It instead turned into silence. Cove's brain was shutting down. Ma had sympathy for him.
There.
Just ponder it. Ah, we need people to drive us. Like the good old days. You hummed in agreement. It was kind of nice to take your time.
Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go see
Hey,
our
buddies.
friends. I gotta hug you, Terry.
So great.
I missed you. Miranda's expression softened. She gave your hand another squeeze.
I missed you too a ton.
Miranda released your hands. Giggling, she eyed you both carefully.
It's nice.
Everything is perfect, actually, right now.
That's cool.
I can tell. You're sparkling.
Standing up straighter, you felt a surge of pride for yourself. You were really happy with where you were in life and where the trajectory seemed like it was taking you.
I'm really glad for you.
What about you?
The corner of your mouth curled while you took in the warm welcomes all around. It was kind of funny how your group of 4 friends evolved into 2 couples. Your grin widened because Terry and Miranda still didn't know about that part yet. Now felt like the perfect time to share the good news. Speaking of how things are... Cove and I got together! Leaning nearer to him, the corner of Cove's mouth tugged into a bent smile.
Woo!
Woo!
Congratulations!
Miranda bounced in place, genuinely over the moon to hear that it finally happened. Terry shook his head, and his rumble of laughter morphed into a teasing grin.
Preposterous.
I still can't believe that I asked Randy out before either of you made a move. One of his hands moved to hold his stomach, and it stayed there while he pulled himself together. Seriously, that's cool stuff. Everything is finally right in the world. Terry broke out into applause over your news. Adding a whistle, Miranda immediately joined in.
Bravo!
The way Cove's shoulders rolled forward and his head tilted lower, you knew that he was deeply embarrassed. Still, the corner of his mouth hooked into a bent smile.
Thank you.
Thanks. You rubbed at the inside of your forearm, your skin feeling hotter from their praise. It was a relief to finally share this big news with your friends. Cove then pulled his phone out and peeked at the screen. He repeated the motion every so often. Oh, right. We got a
Sup, guys and
visitor.
gals?
Derek Suarez? Your mouth hung open in shock. You could still see pieces of the kid you used to run around Sunset Bird with, but he'd grown and changed so much over the years. Nodding, Derek crossed his arms with a pleased look. His green eyes warmed the longer he studied you.
I missed you.
Aww. I missed you too,
Very
buddy.
nifty.
Also, Derek.
Cove piped up, and the pink in his cheeks deepened to scarlet. He rubbed at his arm, trying to put his thoughts together.
What's up, dude? There was, something that I wanted to say now that you're here. Molly and I started dating. It happened yesterday, actually.
Stunned, Derek's eyebrows arched up, but he recovered quickly. The corners of his mouth curled, and he scratched the side of the face.
Oh,
Oh no, that makes me the 5th wheel.
Chuckling, Miranda hid her face in her hands, but that did nothing to hide her shaking shoulders. Terry lightly bumped his shoulder into hers.
No, it's totally fine. You won't even notice.
No, it is not fine. Someone get this man a boyfriend or whatever. We'll have triple dates. Agreed. He jokingly looked left to right, but the five of you were still the only ones in the parking lot. Derek shrugged with a smirk before turning his attention back to you and Cove.
I'm happy for you. Honestly. You're meant for each other. Anyone with eyes can see it.
Thank you.
That means a lot.
Yeah, thank you. And you meant it completely. Hearing that from Derek, after all the years knowing him, this acceptance meant a lot to you. Derek bashfully looked away from the gratitude given. His cheeks became flushed and he spoke out of the corner of his mouth.
There's nothing to thank me for. You're my friends. I'm always rooting for you both.
Humming, Derek elbowed Cove.
So?
But hey, we don't have to stand around here for my sake. What's the plan?
Let's hit the town! Alright, hitting the town. You glance from Cove over to your childhood home quietly. Yeah. Yeah! Oh right, the amazing shirt. No, it's not a formal meal.
But your mom's party, it's at the country club.
Yes, that's normal. We can wear what we always do. This isn't like those summer soirees where they were having a real party. We're only going for a regular meal.
Seriously?
Well, it's okay. You look very nice. You look more than very
Thanks.
nice,
You
for the
alright
record.
with
Ooh, didn't know I'd be getting a show. I'm following you anywhere. Man, we're so comfy with each other already. I'll take off the dress.
I guess.
I'm gonna splash him back.
Wow.
Sat on the bars with him? Yep. I nodded about something. The mood had shifted now. It's so funny, these like tiny little changes. I wonder why they're just ever so slight. We're really lucky.
Yeah.
I love you. He held your gaze a moment longer, looking straight at you as he spoke
I
again.
love you.
Forever.
And a smooch. Let's just kiss each other while wearing underwear in the middle of the night in the middle of the street. Catching him by the hand, you stopped Cove in his tracks and pulled him close. Your heart somersaulted as your lips met. At this moment, with the quiet seaside town at rest, it felt like it was just the two of you in the world. Cove returned the kiss, gently cradling your head with his hand until you broke apart. You were full of joy. All other concerns and the day-to-day stresses of normal life were squeezed out by it. All you could think in that moment was how your life was wonderful. Every second and every day needed to end sometime, and that time had nearly come for tonight. You had to get at least some rest and bring it all to a close. So, you nodded decisively. Cove still kept fish after all these years, delightful, colorful things in huge aquariums. He apparently spent a lot of time watching them swim. His fish were the most important things at his place to him. You had not been surprised when he told you that he had found someone to look after them in his absence. Okay. It'll be okay. You calmly smiled at Cove, letting him see your own belief that everything was fine. He relaxed and nodded back at you. Alright. You hummed in agreement and started to dig out your pajamas.
Good night.
Good night. Cove was gently waking me up again. Did I do this? No. Was it this? You know what? I'm just gonna pout and keep my eyes shut. You could feel the warmth of Cove's hand on your shoulder, shaking it again. An amused laugh escaped him as you buried your face into the pillows.
It's morning. Time to get up.
You cracked an eye open, and Cove greeted you with a fond look. He withdrew his hand. Nah, fine, I'm awake. I'll just figure out what I'm wearing. You turned away, hiding the way your face reddened with embarrassment. It was still hard to believe that Cove was actually your boyfriend now. Ooh, now this is interesting. I'm gonna make another save here, because I'm curious. Very curious. If he will still propose if I don't propose, or if the proposal only happens if you decide to now, because I mean, very quick. I'd be surprised considering we've only been dating for like 2 days if he proposed, but I gotta know. This was everything you'd ever let yourself dream about, and somehow it was real. Your heart drummed quicker in your chest, and a tiny wish hidden there. One day you might take another step further with him, but there wasn't any rush. We'll see.
What do you think? What do you think?
About whether they've eaten? Maybe not?
Hello.
Hello, Ma. You nodded at Cove as he listened in. You took a second to phrase your request. Have you eaten yet? I'm across the street, and Cove's family wants to invite you to breakfast. Okay.
Sounds good.
You nodded from behind Cove, willing to follow directions. Alright.
Are we interrupting something?
No, my family is eating breakfast with us. They should be over soon.
All right.
So come and join us.
Good.
All these tiny little things. We'll skip the, you know who else being here would make this extra perfect? Let's just...
That's fantastic.
I want to see them!
Fun.
Even as a baby, you look unimpressed. It's such a cute
Great.
picture. I'm so glad we got to do this.
So,
Your mouth curved into a soft smile. You could see the happy glow in Cove's demeanor, and you had a feeling that there was an easy answer. Are you thinking about the fireflies?
right.
Do you want to go to the Poppy Hill before we leave?
Always. Alright, let's chase fireflies. Let's see what happens. You hummed happily in response before getting caught up in watching the fireflies again. You couldn't believe you hadn't planned on doing this all along. This felt so right to end your trip. Taking a deep breath, Cove held your eye. He appeared to be conflicted about what he wanted to say next, and you waited for him to make his choice. We were so innocent then. Finally, Cove parted his hands and released the firefly back into the hill. It flew up around his face before darting away up into the sky, but your gaze was fixated on him. There was a touch of wistfulness in his features as he watched the bug disappear into the night. It wasn't until Cove turned his attention back to you that his demeanor warmed.
Okay, I'm ready to go now.
I think I'm ready too.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it's just goodbye for a little while.
Mm-hmm. There'll be more nights like this one someday.
Trailing a few steps behind Cove, you looked back down the hill. You spotted your childhood home immediately.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the proposal does not happen if you don't do it, which makes a lot of sense, because I'm like, how the heck would he plan that in like 2 days, so... Could you honestly ask him to marry you, despite only officially dating for 1 day? Why not? Glancing back at Cove, all the tension and doubt left your body. You knew Cove. You knew him more than almost anyone in the world. You didn't want to rush. You wanted to catch up to everything you'd been missing before now. Cove?
Yeah?
He mumbled the answer out of the corner of his mouth, eyes glued to his father's condo. Ooh. You know what? Do you want to make a stop at the beach? Cove moved to stare directly at you, mouth drooped into a tiny frown as he absorbed your suggestion to suddenly change the plan. I want to leave Poppy Hill as like the place he proposed to me, and I'm gonna do my proposal a different spot. But once he did see the look on your face, he shook off any lingering confusion. That smile you loved grew once again.
Of course.
Lead the way.
You released a breath through closed teeth, pairing that with a nod. To the shore you went, just the two of you. It was a journey you were intimately familiar with, but this time was simply not the same. Actually doing it, you felt... heavy and tense. You were full of deep, powerful emotions you needed to express. You pulled your legs forward with great effort. Cove began to worry over your apparent strain, but you weren't able to console him. Not then. He was your world. It was overwhelming just how badly you were in love with him and how much you wanted to always be with him. It wouldn't be possible to keep that inside much longer. Under your feet, tarmac gave way to dirt and sparse tufts of grass, which then transitioned into grains of sand. Faded calls of seagulls between the rush of waves were your greeting. You'd arrived. The shore and the sea, two pieces that went together naturally. It was the same as you and Cove. Your old neighbor had always cherished the ocean so much. You'd spent many days of your younger years in this very place together. Playing in the water, collecting shells, surfing, and even just letting footprints trail behind you as you strolled along. It was a part of you as much as him. You knew this was the backdrop you wanted when you asked him that most important question. It was silent. You and Cove faced one another, affection filling the small space between you. He still didn't know why you were doing this, but he transparently didn't care. He was only happy to be there, to be with you. There was an almost painful panging in your chest. The strength of your emotions for him and the knowledge that he held the same feeling back for you made your body ache. You never would have imagined this when you first met your best new playmate, but now as adults it was the absolute truth. You wanted to be with Cove. You needed him to be yours forever. You loved Cove. You loved him so deeply. At that moment, you couldn't have been more certain. Every step you'd ever taken in this life was leading you right here. I will begin to speak. Cove James Holden, you are the love of my life. I want to marry you. Do I say that? I mean, I really like the beginning of that, but I want to have like a question in there. You know what? This one is nice. I'll do this one. I hope to never be without you. Marry me? It all happened in slow motion, his expression of serene affection shifting into quivering awe, eyebrows lifting nearly to his seafoam green hairline and his mouth stretching out to the limit. But despite Cove's mouth being open, he didn't breathe a word. He was entirely incapable of that, so you made your own move. Yes! Pick up a shell! Do it! Your brown eyes shone in the bright light of day, and you hoped he could see the strength of your love for him as you looked up at him from down on one knee. At that, Cove crumpled onto the ground, his legs completely giving out underneath him. Bubbling drops of tears flowed down to the sand just as heavily.
Molly.
That single word was all he could choke out, but that alone was all the inspiration you needed to continue your open-hearted confession. You had to let Cove know everything you'd kept to yourself. About your relationship, your history, your love for him. I know it was only a couple days ago when I finally told you I even wanted to be a couple, and now I'm proposing. But I can't pretend. You've been there in my life since we were kids, and I want us to always be together. And with every day that's gone by, the more you've meant to me. You're pretty and lovely and wonderful and perfect. I can't even imagine not being with you for the rest of our lives. Will you marry me? The corners of Cove's mouth pulled up as he let every word reach deep into his heart. Still smiling like the sunshine, he parted his lips to answer, but all that came out was a gasped, squeaking sound. Frustrated, when he tried to push past that block, he instead got himself into a stuttering coughing fit.
Sorry.
There, Covey! I will laugh warmly. Cove instinctively reached forward and gripped you for support. He hung his head low, taking in slowly deepening breaths. You didn't mind in any way, shape, or form. You'd wait forever for Cove if it was necessary. Eventually, the trembling in the fingers that were holding you settled out. He was able to lift his head once more to meet your gaze.
I will.
Despite tears still clinging in his eyes, the words were evenly spoken. Cove had complete confidence in this.
Molly, I'd be so grateful to marry you. There's nothing more that I could ever ask for.
You'd never understand the term music to your ears better than when you heard the way he laughed so sweetly in that moment.
I've thought about this a lot, you know, probably way too often. And now... it's real. It's happening. I don't know if I'm even good enough with words to tell you how happy it makes me. You're what's made my life such a wonderful, beautiful, amazing experience. I'm luckier than I have any right to be just to know you.
I love you.
Thank you. For asking me, and for being mine and letting me be yours. Let's get married.
Delicately, Cove lifted out an open hand. You started understanding what the gesture meant instantly. You gifted the shell to its rightful owner. His voice thick with emotion, Cove whispered,
It's perfect. I'll keep it always.
"That's so sweet." His eyes were transfixed on the shell. He admired it openly before finally lifting his gaze to meet yours. The view of ocean blue held glossy drops of water, and somehow all you could think was that was him. Cove Holden, the man you loved, and now the person you were going to marry. So violent. You couldn't hold back any longer. Your fingertips skimmed over his cheeks for a second, all sweetness. Cove got the hint. He pulled you into him as close as he could get, desperate to feel you. Gladly, you kissed your fiancé. He kissed you back lovingly, and you could feel the smile on his face. The town where you met, where you grew, where you fell in love, was now the place where your shared life together truly began. Your eyes drifted close to let yourself experience it, to anchor yourself in this moment and hold on for as long as possible. You, the both of you, never wanted to let go. You were certain of it. The rest of your days would be spent side by side. It was all you'd hoped for. When the swirling excitement of your new engagement relaxed back into the more familiar style of gentle comfort your relationship brought, Cove stood up. He lifted you along with him. A lingering warmth filled the air around you much more than the normal heat of summer. It was all your own. With a gentle tone, Cove spoke once more.
Let's go see our families.
The smile on his face was shaky. You knew he was nervous to tell them the news. I'm so excited for this. Yeah, they're waiting for us. You arrived back at the doorstep of the Holden household. Your fiancé put his hand on the doorknob and took a deep breath. It was clear why he hesitated. Once he twisted that doorknob, it would be time to announce that you were going to be married. He stole a glance at you. You tried to stay calm for both of your sakes. He nodded with his confidence clearly bolstered. Then Cove opened the door.
We're here!
Together you stepped into the house, hearts beating fast. Cove stopped before even placing his foot back down. There was unexpected company. You saw your family, not just your moms, but Liz and Lee as well. Along with them, Terry and Miranda were curled up on a couch, and Derek sipped at a glass of water. Well, this saves us time.
Surprise!
Surprise! Everyone else followed and let out a chorus of surprises. Cove's eyes widened and he swallowed hard. This wasn't part of the plan!
What took so long?
Yeah.
You're slowpokes. Cove remained almost completely frozen in place, though he did finally place his foot to the ground.
Hey, sport, Molly. Your friends came over for a visit, so I invited them to breakfast.
Any whoosies?
And since we were cooking for a crowd any whoosies, we decided to ask Pam, Noelle, and all over too. Pretty nice, huh?
Wow, we've got a surprise for everyone too. Not that surprises were a competition, but you felt that Cove and you were about to win. The groups looked back with expectant smiles. Cove automatically rubbed the faint scar on his arm. I feel like I should make this announcement since I'm the one that proposed this time. I have an announcement. All eyes turned to you. It was an awful lot of eyes at once. I am intending to take Cove James Holden's hand in matrimony. I proposed to Cove and he accepted. Cove nodded with a serious expression.
Right.
I'm going to marry Molly.
Cove reached over to take your hand as a physical sign of your union.
What?
Engaged? Your sister's shout cut through the room. From everyone else's reactions, it was clear that she was speaking for the majority of the room. Weren't you just making a big announcement that you were a couple 2 days ago? Yes? Cove's eyes sank down to stare at his shoes. If he got even 1% more bashful, you'd imagine he'd have to start hiding behind you. And he'd have to, like, basically fold himself in half to hide behind me, because I'm so tiny and short.
Yes. Molly asked me to be her boyfriend when she got here, and then this morning Molly proposed.
This is great.
Damn, man.
Derek's bemusement was plain on his face as he snorted. Cliff's eyes were fixed in the general area of you and Cove, completely stunned. Kyra smiled wistfully. Ma giggled as most of the room continued to goggle.
I understand.
Well, I can't blame them. When you know it's right, it's right.
True.
You have a point.
I guess I can't be too surprised that they're pulling this. It just figures.
Oh, yeah.
It is very up their alley. Cove and Molly really just went for it.
Yep. What else would that pair do but skip the whole dating thing and go straight to a wedding? No dates, only marriage. Look, I mean, we spent our entire lives together up to this point. I feel like, why delay things any longer? Cove huffed and crossed his arms.
Hey!
We were dating. We even told all of you about it.
Liz's cackle was the loudest of everyone's laughs. You had a feeling that they'd be chuckling about this for a long while. Probably always. Suddenly, Cove was almost bowled over by Cliff throwing his arms around him. His father compressed him even more tightly as Cove regained his balance.
I'm so glad.
I'm so proud of you, Cove. The two of you are going to be happy. I'm sure of it. Dad.
Cove sniffled, eyes wide and emotional. Then he hugged his father back just as firmly.
Yeah, I will be. Both of us will be.
While the two embraced, Kyra came up to your side. She put a hand on your shoulder and spoke gently.
Thank you.
Thank you for being so wonderful to my baby. I'm lucky and grateful that you're going to be a part of my life forever.
Cliff pulled back and switched to patting the sides of Cove's arms.
Well put, Kyra. Molly is a keeper for sure.
Kyra sidestepped over to her son and pinched his cheek, then she tapped his nose playfully. Cliff gave her space, though continued to keep hold of Cove. Your own parents had now reached you. They took hold of one arm of yours each.
I can't believe how grown up you are, but I couldn't be happier with how it all happened. Congratulations, Molly. You are one of the smartest cookies there are. You're making an amazing life for yourself.
Liz elbowed her way to the front, with Lee not far behind. Your mom stayed at your sides. Lee squealed in your face, pumping a fist into the air.
Seriously?
This is totally amazing! You're seriously getting married. It's like we're real adults and all that.
Yeah, it'd almost be hard to believe that my baby sister is marrying a person. You know, if Cove wasn't such an obvious choice as a husband for you. Her smile turned abnormally soft. You're doing good. Out of the corner of your eye, you noticed Cove's parents release him. He took the opportunity to slide closer to you and nodded at Liz.
Thanks for the positive rating.
You're welcome.
Lee giggled, and your moms had some chuckles. Cove stood awkwardly, not entirely sure if he or Liz was being laughed at. Your three friends had stayed back. You believe that they were intentionally giving your families a chance to have a moment. Okay, the rest of this is playing out similarly to the phone call, but just in person. But once they said their pieces, it didn't take long for your friends to swarm you excitedly.
Congratulations on the engagement! It's crazy how we're really at this point of our lives. Some days it feels like high school was yesterday.
So great.
You both are definitely Sunset Bird's best couple.
Terry nodded eagerly. You are the aspiration. I'm stoked that you're going to be official.
This is a big step, but I'd say you've more than earned it with everything you've been through over the years. You both deserve to be with each other for the rest of your lives.
Cove had appeared weepy before, but this sealed it. He cried. Everyone's words had built up and coalesced into Cove shedding the happiest tears you'd seen.
Thank you.
Group hug! You spread your arms wide, welcoming everyone in for a good squeeze. There's so many people.
You can hack it. Sure. Let's do it.
Cove's were the first arms around you, although it didn't take long for everyone else to join in. You and Cove were squished into a giant hug of family and friends. Cove wiggled a little to embrace you tighter. He pressed his cheek against yours, still wet from his oncoming tears.
Good luck, kiddos. You've got a journey ahead of you.
Cliff agreed with a chuckle.
They've known each other for 15 years already and still haven't gotten sick of each other yet. How hard could making it work for the rest of their lives be?
It's no trouble.
For the two of them? Not difficult at all.
Thank you so much, everyone. It means a lot that you're all here for us. Cove nodded against you with a watery smile. All the parents shared touch glances. Liz gave an okay sign, and your friends beamed back at you.
Of course. What else is family for?
With the hug complete, people once again spread out so everyone had breathing room. From your ear to your cheek, over the bridge of your nose, and to your other ear, your blush warmed your skin, and it didn't stop there. It spread over every inch, encompassing you with affection. You could feel with every encouraging pat and excited hug the outpouring of love and acceptance from your friends and family. Truly touched, you watched them step back and take their seats again. When the excited energy buzzing around the table started to calm, you had a second to truly appreciate this view. The most important people in your life all together again.
Oh,
Food? Oh, I kind of forgot that's what we were here for.
I mean, fair. Embarrassed, Cove scratched the back of his neck and kept his gaze away from anyone in particular. The crowd burst into loud fits of laughter. Wow, I didn't think you would ever forget about your precious food. No offense, Molly. He eats like it's both the first and last time he's doing it. Liz directed that last part at you with a sincerely apologetic shrug. Meanwhile, Derek shook his head, fighting back a grin.
As funny as that is, Molly definitely does a better job at getting Cove's attention than meals do.
Clearly. Thanks. Cove's stare never left the floor, but you could tell he was listening to their teasing. Leaning back in his chair, he quietly crossed his arms and pouted. Equally bashful, you averted your eyes from the unfolding scene. Though, while you wouldn't admit it out loud in front of your friends and family, you were thrilled by their observation. I'm more important than food, hooray!
Good.
Alright, we're just gonna skip the
That's
other people.
fantastic.
I wanna see...
Fun.
We'll just skip ahead to the Firefly thing and just see if anything there is different.
right.
And if not, I think we might wrap it up here. Let's see. I'm ready to.
Yeah.
Something in the air gently roused you from your peaceful slumber. Sleepily, you took in the room. It wasn't your own. As your dreams ebbed away, you slowly began to piece together the puzzle. It was mostly dark out, and you were still in the hotel. This was your last day there, in fact. Checkout was at noon. Wait. What is this? After getting actually engaged, you simply could not wait longer to share your space with him. Since the two of you couldn't fit on the narrow hotel beds together, you suggested another method. Cove certainly didn't mind giving up the bed, especially since you were joining him there. Oh, that is so cute. I'm so glad I kept going for a little bit.
They slept on the floor together.
Aw, cuties. Blankets and pillows were piled up to try adding some comfort, though those didn't compare to falling asleep with your head tucked against your now fiancé's chest. You couldn't remember the last time you'd had such a good night's rest, mattress or not. As your eyes adjusted to what little light there was to catch on to, a smiling face cozied itself right above you. There he was.
Molly!
Good morning.
The grin was bright enough to make it seem like maybe the sun had risen after all. Please stop being a morning person. Oh, it's my dream come true. And the smooch. What are we talking about? Ah, by tapping the window? Maybe.
Come on.
What is
Come
this
on.
about? Oh, about tapping on the window.
Come on.
Shame on me. So why are you doing this? Let's see. With you, definitely. Cove used his hands to push himself forward off the ground. He had a lot of energy considering the early hour.
All right.
Great!
I will take your hand. He needn't have asked. Still, you weren't going to deny him. You gave him a thumbs up. One more. Okay. Let's get into the water. This will
Wow.
probably be pretty much the same. It all went by way too fast.
I'm so glad. I love you.
Aw. I love you. Hooray. I don't know. That's too much pressure.
Hey,
His voice was light, gently coaxing you out from your shell.
It's okay.
how many choices have you already made to get this far? I'm sure you can handle one more.
Cute. That's a very cute little fourth wall break. Wanna go make out? Wanna grab something to eat? Always about the food. Alright, perfect. That's how that ended. Delightful. Okay, I went way longer than I was planning to, but I got everything I was hoping to. Because I had no idea what was gonna go on with this. We're not done yet. So I guess we're gonna get a part 3 to this alternate life. I want to get, because we didn't get the opportunity to get the confess to Cove about what happened with his dad in step 4. So I need to get a save going for that. I also want to get a save for finding out about the deal during the wedding vows instead without me ever having admitted to it. And then we're going to end this entire game with me doing the vows properly. So I guess we'll do that next week. But man, what a great alternate step 4 that was. There was a lot of fantasticness in this entire episode. I'm just thrilled by all of it, really. I'm just gonna be over here wiggling in happiness until next week when we get to finish stuff with Cove. I'm not going to complain about getting all this extra goodness with our boy because he is an angel and deserves the world. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the additional alternate life moments we got, and hopefully I'll see you next week for a few more just to wrap it all up, and then it'll be Derek's turn. Until then, I will see you later.